My name is Claire Novak. I'm 37 years old. My daughter Lily is 9. She has her father's red hair and my inability to let anything go unfinished. She reads 2 books at a time, one for story, one for facts, and she keeps them stacked on her nightstand in a specific order that only she understands. She makes her bed with the kind of precision that makes me suspect she learned it from a YouTube tutorial and hasn't told me. She says please and thank you without being reminded, holds elevator doors for strangers, and cries at nature documentaries when anything dies. But quietly, with her hand pressed flat against her chest, like she's trying to hold the feeling in place until it passes. She is the kind of child who doesn't complain. Not because she's been told not to, because she genuinely believes that if she waits long enough, most things work themselves out. This is her best quality and also the thing that terrifies me most. Because when things don't work themselves out, she doesn't say so. And that October, for 23 days, she didn't say so. I want to tell you something about Lily before I tell you what happened. Because the story matters more if you understand who she is. She started reading at 4. Not because we pushed her. Because she was furious that the words in books were a code she hadn't cracked yet, and she treated learning to read the way she treated everything that challenged her, as a problem that required method, not waiting. By the time she started kindergarten, she'd already finished 2 chapter books on her own, and was asking me what words like melancholy meant, and whether there was a word for the feeling you get when something is beautiful and sad at the same time. Saudade, I told her. It's a Portuguese word. She wrote it in her notebook. She has notebooks for different things. One for words, one for animal facts, one for questions she hasn't found answers to yet. The questions notebook is the thickest. She told me once that she adds to it more than she crosses things off, and she said it like that was a good thing. Like having more questions than answers meant the world was still interesting. She has a best friend named Emma, who she has known since 1st grade. Emma is the opposite of Lily in almost every way. Loud where Lily is quiet, impulsive where Lily is deliberate. The kind of child who announces her feelings the moment she has them. They have been inseparable for 3 years. They have a handshake they invented themselves, 12 steps long, that they perform every morning before class. She also has a close friend named Priya, who moved to their school in 2nd grade and slotted in beside them so naturally it was hard to remember a time before her. The 3 of them ate lunch together every day. Same table, same seats, the comfortable routine of children who have found their people and stopped thinking about it. That was still true in September. It was not true when they came back from fall break. It started, or I think it started, the 2nd week of school after fall break. Lily came home quieter than usual, not dramatically, not the silence of a child who is upset and wants you to notice. The other kind. The silence of a child who is managing something and has decided to manage it alone. I noticed because I notice everything about Lily. That's not a virtue. That's just what mothers who have been paying close attention for 9 years do. You develop a kind of a second sight that has nothing mystical about it. You just know the textures of your child. I asked her how school was. Good, she said. How was lunch? Fine. She got a snack when she came home, which she always did, and ate dinner normally, which she always did, and I told myself it was nothing. The 2nd week, her teacher sent a routine email. It was a general class update, upcoming projects, field trip permissions, reading logs due. At the bottom, almost as a postscript, she had written, Lily has been a little quiet at lunchtime this week. Just wanted to flag it. I'm sure it's nothing. She seems fine in class. I read it twice. I'm sure it's nothing. She seems fine in class. I wrote back the same evening. I asked if she could tell me more specifically what quiet at lunchtime looked like. I asked if Lily was eating. I asked where she was sitting. The teacher replied the next morning. She said Lily had been sitting with her usual group. She said she was eating. She said not to worry. I noted the reply. I didn't fully believe it, not because the teacher was lying, but because not to worry is not the same as I checked. I want to be precise about what I felt at this point, because it mattered for what I did next. It wasn't alarm. It wasn't the sharp, specific fear that arrives when something is clearly wrong. It was something quieter and harder to name. A low, persistent attention, the kind that doesn't go away when you tell it to, the kind that means your body has noticed something your brain hasn't caught up to yet. I have learned over 9 years to trust that feeling. So I kept watching. That weekend, I asked Lily directly. We were baking. Saturday afternoon, the kitchen smelled like brown butter and vanilla, and Lily was measuring flour with the careful attention she brings to everything precise. She had her hair in 2 braids, which she does herself now, and she was wearing her favorite sweatshirt, an old one of mine she claimed 2 years ago and has never returned. Lily. Are you eating at lunch? She didn't look up from the measuring cup. Yes, I watched her. Is everything okay at the lunch table? A pause. Just a small one. The kind you miss if you're not watching for it. Yes. She leveled the flour, added it to the bowl. I didn't push. Not yet. I filed it. The thing about Lily is that she responds to space, not pressure. If you push directly, she retreats further into the management. If you give her room and stay close, she eventually finds her way to the thing she's been carrying. It takes longer. It requires patience I don't always have. But it works, and I know her well enough to know when to wait. I waited. The 3rd week, she came home on a Wednesday and went straight to her room without stopping for her snack. I stood in the kitchen and looked at her backpack by the door and felt something shift from low attention to something with more weight to it. I gave her 10 minutes. Then I knocked on her door. She was sitting on her bed with her fax book open in her lap, not reading it. I could tell because the page hadn't turned and her eyes weren't moving. She was just holding the book like it was something to hold. I sat down next to her. I didn't say anything. I didn't ask anything. I just sat there, close enough that she could feel I was there, quiet enough that she didn't have to perform anything. After about 2 minutes, she said very quietly, "Some girls move to a different table." I kept very still. Which girls? Emma and Priya, her 2 closest friends, the 12-step handshake, 3 years of same table, same seats. When? She thought. Before fall break, I think. So 3 weeks ago. She nodded. Are you sitting alone at lunch? Another pause. The hand pressed flat against her chest. Sometimes there are other people at the table, but not the same. I looked at my daughter sitting on her bed with a book she wasn't reading. 23 days. 23 days of coming home quiet. 23 days of fine. 23 days of managing it alone, waiting for it to work itself out, not saying anything because she didn't want to make it a thing. Why didn't you tell me? I said. She thought about it carefully, the way she thinks about everything. I didn't want you to worry, she said. I put my arm around her. Baby, I said, worrying about you is my job. You don't have to protect me from that. She leaned into my side. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I didn't know if it was a big enough thing to say. I held her tighter and didn't say anything for a moment because I needed a moment. I want to know about all the things, I said. The big ones and the small ones, especially the ones you're not sure about, she nodded. Put the book on her nightstand, exactly in its place. I want to tell you what happened next, but I also want to stay in that moment for a second longer. Because that sentence, I didn't know if it was a big enough thing to say, has stayed with me every day since. 9 years old, red hair, 2 books on the nightstand. Presses her hand flat against her chest when something hurts. Has been eating lunch alone or near alone for 3 weeks and said nothing because she wasn't sure it deserved to be said. That is not a child who has been taught that her pain doesn't matter. That is a child who has taught herself to minimize. because minimizing is what sensitive, perceptive children do when they have absorbed too much of the world's general message that big feelings are inconvenient. I am her mother. I am supposed to be the place where minimizing is unnecessary. She didn't know that applied to this. That's on me. Not as blame. I don't think I failed her, but as information, as something to fix. The next morning, I emailed the teacher again. This time, I was precise. I told her that Lily had been sitting without her close friends at lunch since before fall break, 3 weeks, and that she hadn't told me because she had been trying to manage it herself and wasn't sure it was worth mentioning. I told her I was concerned about the social impact on Lily, and I wanted to meet in person. I asked for a time that week. The teacher replied within an hour. She said she was sorry. She genuinely hadn't realized the situation with Emma and Priya. She said she would meet me Thursday at 3:15. I also called the school counselor directly that same morning. Her name was Mrs. Okafor. She had a calm, steady voice and the particular quality of people who have spent years listening to children. She spoke at a pace that made you feel like there was no hurry, like everything you said would be received and considered. I told her what was happening. I asked what resources existed for third graders navigating lunch table social changes. She said, "This is one of the most common and least reported situations I see. Kids this age often don't have the language for it yet. It doesn't feel like bullying, so they don't know what to call it. But the experience of suddenly eating alone when you used to eat with people you love, that's a real loss. It deserves attention." She said she would reach out to Lily individually, just to check in. Nothing clinical, just, "Hey, I heard you've been having some interesting lunches lately. Want to tell me about it?" I thanked her. I hung up. I sat at my kitchen table for a moment and felt something unclench slightly in my chest. At the meeting on Thursday, I brought 2 things: the teacher's original email saying not to worry, and a short written timeline. When I first noticed the change in Lily, what the teacher's email had said, what Lily had told me Wednesday, how long the situation had actually been going on. Not to be confrontational, not to assign blame, to be precise, to demonstrate that I had been paying attention and that I expected the same. The teacher was genuinely kind. She was embarrassed, I think, not defensively, but in the way of someone who cares about their students and had missed something she wished she hadn't. She said lunchtime was harder to monitor than classroom time. She said Lily's way of coping quietly made her easy to overlook. "I understand that," I said. "I'm not here to tell you that you failed her. I'm here because she has been carrying this for 3 weeks alone, and I want to make sure it doesn't go unnoticed for 3 more. I asked for 2 things. A check-in system. Nothing elaborate, just a way for someone adult eyes to notice if Lily's social situation didn't improve. And some gentle facilitation at her current table. Not forced friendship, not a formal intervention, just small moments that made it easier for her to connect with whoever was sitting near her." The teacher said she could do both. The following week, Mrs. Okafor stopped by Lily's classroom to walk with her to the library during lunch. She told me later that Lily had talked for the full 20 minutes about the animal documentaries, about the questions notebook, about the fact that she wasn't sure why Emma and Priya had moved tables, but she had decided it was probably not about her, and she was trying to believe that. "She's doing the work," Mrs. Okafor told me. "She has a lot of insight for her age. She just needs permission to use it out loud." 2 weeks after that, Lily came home and ate her after-school snack at the kitchen counter and told me, without being asked, that she had sat with a girl named Cora at lunch. "She likes the same animal documentaries," Lily said. "She cried when the penguin died." I kept my face neutral because Lily doesn't like a big reaction. "That sounds nice," I said. "Yeah," she said. She kept writing her reading log. A week after that, she told me Cora had a dog named Biscuit, and that they had traded book recommendations, and that Cora was also reading 2 books at a time. one for story, one for facts. I didn't say anything. I just put her snack on the counter and went back to making dinner. That night, after she was asleep, I sat at the kitchen table for a while. I thought about 23 days, a child pressing her hand against her chest, holding the feeling in place until it passed, not saying anything because she wasn't sure it was a big enough thing to say. There is no folder for this. There was no meeting where I put documents on a desk. No statement I made to a room. No career ended. No public reckoning. There was a Saturday with flour on the counter and a question I almost didn't ask. A door I knocked on. A mother who knew before she had a single piece of evidence because 9 years of paying attention builds something in you that doesn't need evidence. And there was a little girl who learned, maybe for the first time in a concrete way, that she doesn't have to wait until the thing is big enough. That her mother wants to hear about all of it. That the small hurts count too. She put Cora's name in her word notebook. Not a definition, just the name, with a small star next to it. I saw it when I was putting her laundry away. I didn't say anything. Some things you just hold quietly, hand pressed flat against your chest, and let them be exactly what they are. If this story stayed with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to Tender Heart Stories. Drop your location in the comments. USA, UK, Canada, Australia, wherever you're watching from, I read every single one. Tell me, can you always tell when something is wrong with your child, even when they say they're fine? See you in the next one.